Hey guys. Okay, so a bit over a month ago, I did a video where I talked about how I use the sewerage related resources, more specifically the detail plans, to help me date a house. Then a couple of weeks ago, I again mentioned the detail plans when I was talking about how I go about working out what is pre and post 1946 construction, and therefore what demolition work is accessible and what demo work is not accessible. Now, in this week's video, I thought I'd introduce you guys to those detail plans and show you how to access and use those plans. I did do a video on this a good 5 years ago, but a lot has changed in this space. Council's website's iterated a bit, but more importantly, my knowledge in this area has grown massively. So I thought, you know what, it's time to redo that video. So let's jump behind the computer and let's do this. Okay, so to access the detail plans, what you need to do is go to Google and type in Brisbane City Council images. And you want to click on the first link that appears, the Brisbane City Council's archives page. Once it loads, you want to come down here and click on Brisbane images. Again, wait for it to load, go detail plans. Again, wait for it to load. Then you want key maps to detail plan. Now, the next step here, once you've got to this page, you want to work out what number detail plan you're interested in. So which number of the detail plans applies to the property in question that you're looking at. Now, because I obviously use these pretty much on a daily basis, I've got a good understanding of what suburb falls within each one of these maps. But if it's your first time or first few times using these things, what you want to do is come here to the index of key maps. Go down, click on the URL and wait for it to download. Once it's downloaded, you've got the maps here, which again, mark out all the suburbs. I shouldn't say again, they do mark out all the suburbs, but what I'd suggest is you come down here to this table. Now, the example I'm going to use today is Red Hill. So we scroll on down to Red Hill and there it is. And the tick is in the first column. First column is central maps. So we go back to the page, click back, and what we want is, again, key maps. We want central suburbs. Again, click on the URL, wait for it to download, boom. Now, what you need to do is work out where the property is and what number sits over the property. What I'd recommend is open up Google or open up interactive mapping or whatever your preferred mapping program is and find a landmark. Now, I always start with the Brisbane River because it's the easiest one, look for the bends and all that sort of stuff. Then I look for railway lines or I look for major roads. In this instance, I come from the city, I know there's a major road that comes up and the fork in the road is what I'm looking for right there. So zoom in. I know my site is roughly in this location here. I think it's more over this side than it is over this side. I can see that number says 135, but I can't quite work out what that number says here. Bit of a tip. They went from one area to the next, to the next, to the next, etc. So the numbers should run in sequence. So we've got like a 132 over here, a 135, but hold on a sec, we got 758, 757, 755. So this number here could be a 7 number or it could be a 1 number. I'm looking at it, looks like a H or a 1759 or I don't quite know. Long story short, can't work it out. So what I'd suggest is you find the adjoining closest number, in this instance 135. Come back to the page and you type in, what did I say, 135 and hit enter. Wait for it to load. And then you scroll down, click on the URL. Again, wait for it to download. Boom, that is the image we're looking for. Now, hot little tip, always make sure your north point is orientated to the north. It is pointing upwards, makes it much easier to navigate around. So in this instance, I can see, because I've obviously looked the plan up before, I know this in advance, that the property I'm looking for is not within this map. But what you'll notice is that on the edge of the map is all of these numbers. They represent the adjoining plan. So if I come over here, that property I was talking about to the west, 759. So if we go back to our central maps, oh yeah, sure enough, 759 looks like it's right. So come back up here, search 759, download, boom, there we go. Now in this instance, north point's pointing down, so let's get this going in the right direction. There we go. Okay, so this is the detail plan. As you'll see, it shows the outline of the houses as they stood at that point in time. So you can see the little lines in quick succession, they represent stairs. So we've got stairs coming down the middle of the house, stairs coming up to the rear of the house, stairs coming up the rear again, etc., etc. You get the idea. Now these solid outlines, they represent open verandas. Solid outline here, carport. Dashed lines, sorry, give me a sec, got a cough. Still getting over the head cold that I had a few weeks ago. But yeah, dashed line is something downstairs. So in this instance, BTH, I know it stands for bathroom. That means that there was a bathroom downstairs at that point in time. Over here, we've got an outline, but there's no label on it. So I'm not quite sure what that room is. And then you can see individual pathways and all of that sort of stuff. My favorite part of all though, is all of the little C boxes in the back corners. Or if you come through here, earth closets, AKA thunder boxes, AKA toilets. Such a trip down memory lane, look at these things. So yeah, that is how you access the detail plans, and that's how you start to interpret those detail plans. Now, I have written some notes down on my notepad here because I wanted to make sure I gave you guys all the tips and thoughts I could come up with. Firstly, what if you can't read the plan number? We've already talked about that. Pick the nearest one that you can read and then work sideways from there. How do you find the date? Okay, so I keep talking about this is what the house looked like at that point in time. If you zoom out, you find the surveyor's number over here. We can see this plan was collated in 1937. Collated, the field work would have been done in advance of that, but you have to go check out the field surveyor's books, etc., to be able to work that out. Now, what happens if you look there and there is no plan date? It happens quite frequently, annoying. What I used to do was I'd jump across to the next plan number. So let's say this is 759. I'd look at 758 and I'd look at 760 and see if they both had 1937 on them. Then I'd assume that this one was 1937. But what I actually worked out recently is, if we come across, no, I want to keep going back. Index registers to plan dates. Okay, so you want to sort it alphabetically. Yes, I know it's numerical. I don't know why they call it alphabetical. It makes no sense. The plan number we were looking for was 759. Come down here, wait for it to load. It does take a little bit of time to download because it is such a big, heavy document. But once it downloads and opens up, what we'll see is there is a separate page for each detail plan and it lists all of the dates. So here is this document. Let's come down. As you'll see here, the first survey, 1926, then we got some more work that was done in 27, 26, 26. Where's a good one that I can show you with multiple different dates on it? Scrolling down. Oh, there's no juicy examples. I should have been more prepared, hey? Should have had a good one open. Nah, give me a sec. Oh, I give up. Let's just go with this one. So basically we've got the first date they went through in 39, but then you've got, looks like a second revision in 43. You may recall from a previous video I talked about the fact that when the war was in effect, they basically redirected funding from the surveying projects across to fighting the war. Obvious reasons they did that. So these projects got put on pause for extended periods, and then they had to go back and resurvey certain areas to account for that passage of time, let's just say. So you can have a look at this book and work out, okay, when did they first do the survey work? If they went through a second time, when did they do the second round of survey work? And that helps to give you the date. Now, what is next on my list? What happens if you can't find the plan? So there is, every now and then, I'm going to guess maybe like, I don't know, 10% of the time or something like that, you'll go to the browser, you'll type in detail plan, blah, blah, whatever number it is, and you'll get no search result. And you just be like, what duh? In that situation, you've got to email archives and be like, yo guys, any chance you can scan the image for me and upload it to Brisbane Images so I can access it? So just a bit of a tip there, because in the beginning I was like, oh my goodness, we can't access this plan. It's annoying. I've got like one street over, but there is a workaround there. Doesn't account for relocators. Again, I mentioned this in previous videos. So let's say, for example, we're looking at this property here, vacant we've established 1937. So it's vacant, doesn't mean the house is a post-1911 construct or post-1911 structure. If you remember the previous videos, 1911 is a key date in town planning world. So look at that and you go, oh, it was vacant in 37, must mean it's post-1911. No, it was very common for houses to be relocated after 1911. And if it's relocated to the site but built elsewhere prior to 1911, it still holds the same value and level of protection as a pre-1911 house built on the property prior to 1911. So watch out for that. Later years. So in the earlier years, they went site to site and basically mapped out every little feature. Like you can see, like we said, stairs and tanks and all of that sort of stuff. But in later years, I don't want to say they became lazy because that's negative. They became more efficient. They found better ways of doing this stuff and they started working off aerial photos. So what you need to know is when you get into later years, you don't get the same level of detail as you do in these younger years. Now, next thing is cross-check features. Ooh, I need to strongly recommend, once you've found what you think is the property, actually jump in and have a look at it on Street View and see, does it look like it could have had a veranda along the front down the side previously? Or does it look like it could have had a veranda off the front corner of the house? To make sure you're actually looking at the same or the right house, there's been so many times over the years where I've been looking at floor plans and cross-checking them against the detail plan, and I'm like, oh, this is not adding up. Why is this not adding up? Like, I can't work out what's going on here. And then I realized, oh wait, the house has been moved sideways. It's not the same house I was looking for. Yeah, that's very annoying. So make sure you do that early on. Next is house numbers can change. I mentioned this again in a previous video on a job I was looking at Paddington. I spent more time than I like to admit actually going, okay, because you don't always get house numbers. Side note, sometimes you can get house names, which is very cool and helps in terms of searching Trove. But yeah, you don't always get numbers, but sometimes you do. And when you look at those numbers, don't always bank on them, because the Paddington job I had, they'd actually rearranged and changed the numbers at some point. So the house I was looking at was actually the neighbour's house. Tip there. Now, acronyms. So I haven't worked out what they all are. C, like I said, earth closet, aka thunderbox, aka toilet. BTH, bathroom. What's another one I can show you? Actually, I got another plan I opened earlier. Let's come across to this one. I love this one. I saw the other day. Fish pond. Oh, that's so cute. Like, they had a fish pond and it was obviously big enough to and noteworthy enough to put on the plan. You'll see TK means tank. TKS is tanks, plural. Sometimes you'll see, what have I written down here? W and B can stand for wood and brick. I've seen GL, and I haven't verified this, but it's been suggested that may stand for galvanized iron, or maybe it's GI now that I think about it. Anyway, metal. And then STK is apparently septic tank. Sorry, I got a cough again. Push on. But that's where I'm up to in terms of understanding the acronyms. What I would love is, does anyone know, or if anyone happens to work it out, what the heck are these black squares? I was looking at this before when I first brought up this example, and I was like, what are they? They can't be like water meters or anything. That's bothering me. I would really like to know what those squares are. But yeah, if anyone else knows what any of the other notations are, acronyms are, if you come across anything else in your travels, I would love to hear about it in the comments below, because it's going to build the collective knowledge basically. Okay, so now hopefully you understand how to access the detail plans, and you've got some tips on how to use those detail plans. Now, if you guys have previously used the detail plans, I'm saying detail plans a lot today, aren't I? But if you've previously used them, or once you've had a bit of a chance to play around with them, if you come across any other tips or any other bits of information you think could benefit other people, including myself, I would love to hear about them. Add them in the comments below so we can all benefit from the knowledge. As I always like to say, until next time, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got three. Number one, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site-specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number two, Brisbane town planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number three, what was my number three? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all. Bye.